Okay, so we are talking now, but this time about the Geffen, or the vine. This is Parashat Balak, page Lamed Daled, page 34. And reading Zohar Sulam. We're on the Pirush of paragraph Pei He on the left-hand column. Uva Geffen Shlosha Sarigim. And the Geffen has three vines, branches. Yeah. So Ashlag explains Shu Sod Gimel Kavin Shebemalchut, which symbolizes the three lines, left, right, and center, which now the Malchut. We said Geffen is like it's rooted up in the world of intelligence, and it comes all the way down to the Malchut. And even the Malchut has three branches, left, right, and center. Sheba Makom Schitat Anavim. In the Malchut itself, this is where we actually squeeze the grapes and get the wine out of it. Okay, so the process is that, even though we said that wine comes from Binah and Shecha comes from Gvura, and then the grapes on the bottom, the idea is that by squeezing these grapes, which are containers of wisdom, right, and containers of intelligence, we are creating this wine, or revealing or realizing the wine and the whiskey which is found inside the grapes, which is the containers. By experiencing life and investigating life, we are experiencing these things which can show us the wisdom of God, the intelligence of God, which is the wine, generally speaking. So the minister of the drink, he tells Joseph that I saw now that the vine was blossoming and their buds were also coming up. So these details, what do they mean? Hainu, Ashlag explains, Shachochma Sheba Porachat Mimata. The wisdom which the vine has, we say Israel, we are compared to a vine, to the vine. Because Israel is compared to wisdom and intelligence, right? And so he says, why does it say it was like blossoming and the buds were going up, so to speak? Because he says, Chochma sheba porachat mimata lemala. Because the wisdom is flowering from the bottom up. Shu sod al tanitza. And this is why the Torah puts the emphasis mentioning that the buds are going upwards, okay? And this is the concept that wisdom has to come from, just like flowers, perach, and flowers in the sense that it's blossomed from the bottom up, meaning that it is based quite a lot on experiences, tradition, intuition, and intelligence, but the main thing that it is most important, it comes really not from the conceptions, but from the ground, from really learning, from experience, because the ground has to be like our past, right, where our roots are and so forth. Like the plants sucking a lot of information, elements from the ground, getting energy from the sun and so forth. So it has to be a very natural process, and not again, what he calls the ism of pesel masecha, by concocting all sorts of philosophies in your head, and it's not based enough really on total experience like science, accumulated knowledge, and things like that. So this way it puts the emphasis that it is flowering is always from the bottom up, and the buds are going upwards, coming upwards. Hivshilu eshkolotei anavim. Now her, how do you say eshkolot? Clusters. Clusters of grapes have become ripened into grapes. Hainu arat hachokma nikret anavim. That is the light of wisdom, which we call now grapes. As we said, similar to the balls of our eyes, the eyeballs. Shema perot shel hagef hanaor. These grapes are the fruits of this vine, meaning that we have these containers of wine which are inside the grapes, and by squeezing them we're getting this intelligence and wisdom in a natural way. So these things the boy is trying to help us understand, to clarify it to us. First he lets us hear or know all of the different levels of consciousness which we have in the male side, in our male side, in our female side, in ourselves and in the world, they all come out of Bina. Why? Because we always were born out of the mother, just like in regular life, and the effects of the father are hidden within the mother, as we say, right? Because the DNA of the father connects the DNA of the mother, but the actual body and so forth, the material stuff is all mother. So it's all really what we see, we are only sure about the mother, right? So everything comes out of the mother. As we said that the netzach hod yesod of mother, the lower part of the mother becomes like the vessels to house our consciousness, right? The right leg of the mother gives us the chokhmah, chesed, and the netzach, and the left leg of the mother gives us binah, gvura, and hod, and the yesod of the imah. It's like as if we were constantly being born. So just like a baby is born from the lower part of the mother, likewise, we cannot comprehend like a baby the full extent of the mother, meaning that, the intelligence of the mother and what, Likewise, our consciousness is slowly evolving from the lowest parts of understanding to later we go up to the level of the chest, chesed, gvura, tiferet, then we get also from a little bit higher, but not much more, because the mother intelligence, understanding and wisdom is infinites, right? So we can only understand God, even as we learned yesterday with Rav Kook, only through time and space, through the material world, because beyond that, its infinities is no way to get a hold on it. You can only understand infinities as they express themselves in space, time, in the material world.
Is there a connection to what you just said and the idea that the male contributes the red parts to the body and the female contributes
the opposite?
The opposite. Is there a connection between what you're saying and
yeah, the male is like we spoke about the sun yesterday.
Oh, is that true? You mean red, you mean blood, and white, you mean bone? Is that what you're saying?
Bone and nerves, maybe, yeah.
Sort of contributed by
the male. The white is the male because it's more chesed.
And the red is the woman.
The red is the blood, the form. Okay, again, because we know.
Connected to what you're saying?
Yeah, because we know that first of all, the life, as always mentioned, is very interesting that the life comes from the male. Why? Because it's a fish. The ovum is static.
Right.
And the whole male thing is that the sperm is alive. It's like a fish comes and so he says chokhmah is life, wisdom is life. The yud is life that activates the ovum. I don't know how much we know yet scientifically, but the ovum is static, right? And they also age. It's much more problematic, I think. They spoil, right, with time. Yeah, it has something to do with this idea that the male is chesed,
right, it's white,
Abraham, and the form is the feminine aspect, because
Red is
as we said that the DNA of the male and female join, but all the material stuff comes just from the mother. The father just gave the DNA, and life.
By the way, even in the white, right, it gestates in her. Even the white stuff is coming out of her. He might have had more of a...
The physical, sure, everything comes from the mother, but the idea of the chesed comes from the masculine, and the gvurot, form, fire, red,
giving life,
comes from the female, generally speaking, and that form is very important in our conception of the Torah. Form, proper form, is very important because it is a natural aspect that light expresses itself clearly in matter, and matter which is natural, you might say, right? This is why we don't mix kilaim, different plants or animals, which by mixing them we come to a place of sterile. Sterile, you call it? Sterility,
They cannot procreate.
Right. And most important thing in nature and God's work is life.
Right.
Procreation, continuity, right? So, this is the idea of nature, and as far as the Torah is the ability to procreate, also in the physical realm and also in the emotional, mental. This means becoming. God's name is becoming. So he was trying to say that everything comes out of Binah. This is what we can see. We can always see the mother, the father we cannot actually see, right? And Vesham Mekom Yetziatam, and they come out of Binah. We are born out of the mother's Yesod. Ela Shezeh Pin Zoche Bahem Besod Tlat Mechad Nafke, as we mentioned yesterday. The male side, by initiating an ascension from the world of Malchut, from our normal consciousness, we initiate ascension to the world of intelligence. We are aspiring. So the male, because of this action which he does, he is Zoche, he wins the aspect of Tlat Mechad Nafke, Chad Betlat Kayame. Because we go up to the world of intelligence, I guess our lower nature causes the manifestation inside intelligence of three lines. Right, Chesed, left Gvura, and Tiferet. Okay, now because we initiated this process and we caused this manifestation in the world of intelligence, we actually inherit those three lines. We begin to understand these three lines. It is as if we are like a catalyst, right? By our aspiration, we discover all sorts of things, and spiritually speaking, it says the Zohar is the most important thing is that you begin to realize that there's a right, left, and center. Natural inclination in human consciousness of chesed, doing love and kindness and compassion, and then the left, which has to do more with intelligence, which has to do with discrimination, also judgments, because discrimination, seeing things clearly, rationally, logically, it needs discrimination, definition. From that comes judgments eventually, right? Because then you begin to decide, well, these things I want, these I don't want, and so this is the left side, just like the body. It chooses the material which is good, like the food, throws out the no good, right? And so forth. So he says the male side even the male side within the female initiates to understand more. She also opens up these three lines in the world of intelligence, and the first to get the benefit is you yourself. This is what we also say, and the Baal Shem Tov puts the emphasis, when you pray for Am Yisrael, for the world, and the flow begins to come down, it comes down through you first of all. So you get the benefit of having asked for the public, you get first, so to speak. This is what he says. The male by having this initiation of going up to intelligence, he creates, the one goes up to intelligence, creates three, opens up three lines in the world of intelligence. Therefore, he merits to get these three lines within himself. Now we have the discrimination of understanding our psychology, that we are not based on one pillar, as Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says when he begins to teach the great teachings of the Zohar, but on three pillars at least: left, right, and center. The world has left, right, left, and center. Kanal. וזה המפין משפיעם אל המלכות. The male side of our consciousness then influences our feminine side. Okay, we have to eventually, with our understanding, understand our subconscious mind, our body. Okay, this is what it means, that our male side helps to transform the feminine side, which is much more, you might say, physical, right? The problem is that mentally I can understand many things. Changing myself emotionally, physically, as far as, the way I behave and do and eat, that's much more difficult. So you have to be really a tzaddik of being able to control also your, or be aware of your emotions and your habits, and so that the Binah is just the world of intelligence. Okay, that's why philosophers have the fantasy, once they come up with wonderful ideas, that they are completely have somehow transformed themselves, but that didn't really change anything. It's just a mental, right? And realizing, actualizing is a completely different world. For that, you have to be a real tzaddik. You have to be a mensch, a human being. So he says the male side, like the sun, gives that essence of left, right, and center to the female. וזה שכתוב, now he's going back to the beginning of the Zohar, when the boy says that different nouns, different ideas, they're really pointing to the same thing from a different point of view, a different aspect. Like we say 70 faces of the Torah, we actually mean 70 legitimate angles of looking at the Torah, because human psychology is that we are not all the same. We have a basic template, which is Jacob, left, right, and center within him. And then he has 12, and then the 70 nefesh, we go to Egypt. So this is legitimate forms, which different people see a little bit differently, the world. Right? We all see differently. There are things which are common, right? And there's up to 70 faces, which is very natural. This is what we want to say. So he says, Shiva rekiim inun. So we have 7 firmaments. Shem chagat naim dezer anpin. This, in the male side, you can say this chesed, gvura, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, and malchut of the male. So these are 5 different levels of consciousness, and the emotional levels, yeah. Ve'inun shiva echalin. Now, there is rekiim, firmaments, then there is palaces, heichal, right? Shehem chagat naim de malchut. Now palaces, we are attributing them to the feminine, which is much more concrete. It's like a house, yeah? Firmament is something in the sky, and this is already something built, yeah? Which is malchut, like the body. Shemekabla mizampin. The malchut gets influence from the firmaments, and she creates these palaces, right? Veshit inun. And you can also say these 7, they're not really 7, they are 6, as we learn in the prayers. Shelafayim anu korim otam rak shisha. Sometimes we call them only 6, these 7. Shehem chagat nahai bli malchut. They are just the male aspect without the actual malchut, meaning it's like, let's say, like the sun, which does not have a planet around it yet. So it's the male without the female, right? Or us, our malchut is the crown of the penis, where we do the brit milah, which is our malchut. So it's not really a malchut. It's nothing yet, right? Because the most important thing is the actual female. And so meaning that the female is in potential state. Just like we said, science also discovered in the beginning of the universe, like the 10th dimension is minuscule. Why? Because there's no form. There's just a few atoms in the universe, a few types of atoms. There's nothing there, There's no form, nothing. So it's still hidden. The potential of the universe is hidden. The total form. What?
I always thought the Malchut had no essence of its own. That's why you count. I mean, say the same with Yesod. He's going to say it now. But the idea is that all the other Sefirot...
It doesn't have light of its own, so to speak, like the planet without the sun.
It takes it from...
It needs the energy to give it life. Like we said before, the male gives the life to the female, but it has a form, so to speak, but it's very, as a golmi.
Yeah, very raw.
Raw, right? Because the earth, without the power of the sun, it's right. Yeah, it's nothing, right?
What about sheet? Sheet is
sheet is 6. Yes, sheet is 6. Yes.
So what about Bereshit?
Barashit, actually, in the Zohar, he created 6.
Yes, created 6.
Okay, because the 6 are the male sides, and eventually the 7th is a product of the 6 male forces. My last part is the Yesod. When I give this to the female, the children are born. Okay, when I give the energy to the planet, then the planet gives birth to things, so to speak. So different ways to look at it, right? Potential form, but simply says that the Malchut has no light of its own, just like we said the moon. The moon doesn't have light of its own. It reflects light from the sun. Likewise the earth, which is the female, the real female of the sun, has no life of its own without the sun. Likewise, we also have these aspects in our own subconscious mind, which maybe this is the symbol for the moon, more or less, and the waning and the full moon, ups and downs in consciousness and so forth. We also learned the kavanot, that these 7 heichalot, these 7 palaces or 7 firmaments, we learned in prayer that actually the 6 lower ones come into the highest, which is the Holy of Holies, the palace of the Holy of Holies. So there's only 6, or even 1 that contains all the other. V'chamesh inun, sometimes you can say that these are only 5. Why? ולפעמים אנו קוראים אותם 5, we call them 5, דהיינו חגת נהה. We really call them חסד גבורה תפארת נצח הוד. Why? Simply that these are the actual 5 forces. There's only 5 chasadim, 5 mercies, 5 waters, and 5 gvurot. The gvurot, or powers, 5 waters, 5 fires, and these are parallel to the 10 sefirot. So this is why we call them 5. Why? Because the 6th is like the male container, which these 5 forces come into the Yesod, and the Yesod, all inclusive, is the 6th. When he gives it over to the female, this is the 7th. Okay, so depending what stages you're calling these things, you call them 5 when they are just have not really spread down, let's say, from that into the body. So then they are just or they're in the body, they haven't gone down yet to the Yesod. Like a young child has no sexual potential yet, just a potential, he doesn't have actual sex because the energies have not gone down to our testicles or whatever, which is the Yesod. Okay, so it's not been empowered yet. So this is again, always remember that really of the sfirot of the body, there's only 5, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod. They flow into the Yesod. This is why the Yesod is called Mikveh HaMayim. Right? The ingathering of the waters. This is the Yesod. אוקיי, על פי מספר ה' בחינות, כחב, תפארת ומלכות. So, just like there's 5 really basic sfirot in the body, likewise they are parallel in a higher world of looking the total picture of Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Tiferet, the male, and the Malchut, the female, 5. Ashlag puts the emphasis on these things, that you have these parallels in a general picture as well. Keter, Chochmah, Binah, Tiferet, the male, Zeir Anpin, and the Malchut, 5. Okay, they are, so to speak, the root of these 5 lower sfirot, which are the powers already in space-time, so to speak. Okay? They are reflections, so to speak, of manifestation in space-time. We'll get to it a little bit more later.
Tiferet is the one that...
Tiferet is the male.
Is present in both situations. Because you have...
Tiferet will be the Keter, and this, if you count from Keter, Chochmah, Binah, without that, so Keter will be like Tiferet, the midline, different ways to look at it. But the idea of 5 again. Omnam, Bati says, Vekula nafka mego atika ila. All of these forces, they come from the higher, elevated atika, the ancient one. In this case, he calls it Bina. Even though usually we call atika the crown, he calls it over here Bina, because there is also a crown within Bina. Kikar Yetziat Kol HaMadregot, Hen Bebina, because he says, Bina, the mother, has within her the subsets of all these firot, the Keter of Bina, the Chochmah of Bina, the Bina of Bina. In that sense, and so that the root of all this process or chain of things comes from the Atik, from the ancient one, meaning the crown, the elevated ancient one, which is the crown. Because intelligence is what gives birth to all the madrigot gradations, levels of consciousness. Intelligence, right? Without intelligence, we have no way to get to the place of wisdom, so to speak. So everything comes from Bina, the mother, to the male, to the female. So now it continues the verse in Genesis when Jacob is taking the blessings, Esav's blessings from Isaac. So it mentions Vayavelo Yain Vayesh. Jacob is bringing wine to Isaac and he's drinking. Now we know that wine is the left line, yeah, Bina, Gvura, right? And Anavim, this is why the Nazir has to abstain from this left line, because it causes judgment. This is why he's abstaining from the left line, because, okay, so he's asking, in the Torah, it should have been the opposite. It should have been that Isaac is giving wine to Jacob, right? Because this wine comes from the left side, yeah? Halo yainu arat chokhmah, as again, is the light of wisdom or intelligence, Bina actually, right? The wisdom of the left side, yeah? Shemekorai bekav small, the source of the wine, as he said before, the Geffen, it's rooted in the world of intelligence, right? Shu sod nekudat ashuruk, so the wine comes from the idea of the left line flowing, going into the left arm, and over there you have now the shuruk,